The NFL draft is just 2 weeks away, and there's a ton of draft prospects that come into the process with major injury concerns. It's time to find out who you should really be concerned about and who's going to hit the ground running for the NFL 2025 season. Welcome, football fans, to another edition of IDP Plus. What is up, folks? I'm one of your hosts here, the DGen Doc, and I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Derek Bennett, aka Professor Locks. How we doing tonight, brother?
Not too bad, man, but it's almost my bedtime. These, it's been, 3 months since we've had football. I'm not used to, late night activities at this point. I'm used to, just lounging on the couch, watching, something on Netflix or whatever, and end up passing out at, 9 o'clock.
Okay. So the audience knows, because, these are pre-recorded.
Yeah.
It is 8 o'clock Eastern time on a Thursday night. Yeah. So,
it's right around bedtime.
Thursday night football may not even kicked off.
That 4:30 alarm comes real
yeah.
early.
So very different there. But look, man, I hope you're feeling better than I am, as you could probably tell by the Rudolph nose. Battling through some injuries, but look, we've got.
Hey, you're still looking great, though.
Hey, thank you. I knew you're my co-host for a reason. But we've got the draft coming up, man, and we've been wanting to talk about some of these rookies that are coming in with some injury concerns, right? Yeah. So whether it's a dynasty aspect or just looking to best ball draft or anything like that, you want to know, or you're just a fan of the team. You're like, hey, should we want this guy? He's got this injury thing. How concerning should this be?
Right.
That's what we're here for. So we're going to go through. We've got 9 prospects we're going to talk about, all within the
high profile guys.
All high profile. We'll be very shocked if any of them last past the second round. And there's some serious injuries we're going to talk about. We're going to kind of dispel some of them that may sound serious that are not as serious. And then we'll get into ones that we actually have some concerns. So without further ado, it is time for the 2025 NFL Draft Injury Report. And we're going to start off with, how about we start off with the cornerback position? We've got 3 of really the top cornerbacks, top prospects that are all coming off major injuries. And let's start with what some scouts have called the Quinyon Mitchell of this draft. And that is ECU cornerback Shavon Revel, senior, very productive player for them. Mm-hmm. He tore his ACL in practice on September 18th, 2024. And from his injury date to the week 1 NFL season, he's got about 11 and a half months of recovery. So I ask you, my friend, the expert, first of all, what is an ACL tear? And should we be concerned with him having 11 and a half months of recovery time?
Yeah, so ACL tears, we basically have 4 major stabilizing ligaments of the knee that help keep our knee, where it's supposed to be, and those bones not shifting around while we do really high explosive stuff in terms of cornerbacks, right? These guys have to sprint, they have to jump, they have to cut, they have to stick in wide receivers' pockets 95% of the time. And with an ACL injury, a lot of times we start to feel that instability of the knee. And now you mentioned recovery timeline. He tore it at a decent time. I mean, there's never a great time to tear an ACL. It's one of those kind of major injuries that we hear a lot about in professional sports, but usually these take 10 to 12 months to heal and rehab and things after you get it reconstructed through surgery. So he has about 11 and a half months for full recovery. So that puts him in that 10 to 12 month mark where we typically expect them to be back. Yep. It's one of those things that everybody's a little bit different with ACL tears, especially with these highly explosive guys out on the perimeter. And it's one of those things that even though he's within his recovery timeline, he's probably going to be ready to roll for the season. I don't know if he would necessarily crack the starting lineup those first few weeks, just from a performance aspect. He didn't play football last year. It takes you a little bit to get back into football shape and get back into those types of activities. So for if this Pittsburgh Steelers draft in my team,
Yeah.
I'm super excited about that year 2.
Yep.
Year 1, especially that first half, we'll see how it goes.
Good. Yeah. So I think as a nice kind of way to succinctly put it together, we're gonna assign green flag, yellow flag, or red flag, right? As
Yep.
everybody who is able to drive and understands, green means go, yellow is a little bit of caution, red is like I do not want my team, my player to draft, this guy. Uh, so I will give you my take on it real quick, and then I'll throw it back to you. I'm gonna say for Shavon Revel, he's a yellow flag for me. Good. He should be ready to play by week 1, having a
Yep.
weeks. The not so good, usually year 1 after an ACL tear, we see a bit of a dip in production. He's going to be making that jump from college football to the NFL. You
Yep.
talk about it, he's basically not going to have played high level football for almost a year. You can't really expect a guy like that to just throw him out there week 1.
Right.
Now, like you said, as far as we talk about long term, second half of the season, I think we can definitely start to get excited and things like that. But, can he play week 1? Sure. But is he going to be a starting cornerback caliber level in week 1? I think that's unlikely. So that's where I'm going with the yellow.
Completely agree.
What say you, my friend?
Yeah, I completely agree with your analysis there. I think, if your team already has 2 starting level cornerbacks, you're really excited because you've all of a sudden picked up a young guy with a lot of potential.
Yeah,
He might just be a little sluggish those first 6, 8 weeks, something like that.
good. Yeah. All right, we're going to stick with the cornerbacks here, and we are going to go with Michigan man himself, Will Johnson. Try to not let your bias get too deep in here. But Will Johnson, yeah, he was widely regarded as the number 1 cornerback prospect. He was a great player. 2023, he dealt with some injuries this season,
Yep.
particularly a grade 3 turf toe injury. And then as that seemed to recover, he did suffer a hamstring injury earlier in March. As he was getting ready for his pro day and things like that. So we've got 2 separate injuries here. For the hamstring injury, it's March. He's got 6 months till the season. He injured the turf toe. It looked like a grade 3 turf toe back in October.
Yep.
That gave him 10 and a half months for recovery. So just quickly tell us about, the turf toe is kind of the bigger one, but quickly go into both. And then let's talk about, hey, injury timelines. Are you concerned for the season?
Yep. So turf toe first. Basically, turf toe is when you sprain one of the ligaments in your foot. So our feet have a ton of ligaments. Basically, we have a ton of bones down there, and those ligaments help to stabilize them, kind of hold things together. Your turf toe ligament is basically at the base of your big toe. So anytime that big toe gets extended, which especially for a guy like Will Johnson that does a lot of sprinting, a lot of cutting, we don't necessarily run on our heels, on our feet. We're running on our toes. So anytime he goes to push off, whether it's to cut, to sprint, to jump up and try to break a ball down, that thing gets flared up. And it's one of those things where you don't necessarily know how bad a toe can hurt until you have something like this, and then it's really pretty debilitating. But from an injury timeline standpoint, this is something that should only take 4 to 6 months to really heal. He's got 10 months to till first part of the year. He should be perfectly fine for that. As far as the hamstring goes, with hamstring strains, basically we've overstretched the muscular tissue to the point where it's either stretched, it might be a little partially torn. That's probably what's the case with Will Johnson. It could be a full rupture. That's requiring surgery. He didn't have surgery. It's not that.
Yeah, I'm very unlikely.
So in this case, it's probably just mild stretching, maybe a little bit of tearing. He should be back within 4 to 6 weeks. And within season, hamstring strains we know are a pain in the ass to
Yep,
deal
big
with.
time.
Right, it's really hard to come back from a hamstring strain in the middle of the season. Luckily, he was doing this training,
Yeah.
and so he's got the time to get the strength and the power back in that hamstring. Again, takes a month, maybe a month and a half to really rehab. He's got 6 months, so
Yeah,
he
and we're
should be
talking
good.
about 2 separate injuries, right? But both of them, like you described, recovery timeline should be good. Now,
Yep.
I'm not the most surprised that he picked up another injury here. He had went months without, being able to run and do those things because of the turf toe.
Yep.
He's trying to ramp up and get ready for his pro day. He's got like a
Great point.
pretty short suspense there, pretty short timeline. So that almost makes sense.
Yep.
Now, he's got 6 months as a hamstring. He's got time. I understand, we'll see what the teams think about the injuries and stuff like that. But once he gets with the team, he should be ready for a rookie minicamp, all those type of things. So,
No doubt.
as far as someone who's not going to miss time, I'm going to go green flag here because although during the season, both of these injuries would suck,
Yeah.
now that we're,
Yep.
several months removed, I don't have any injury concerns heading into 2025.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's one of those things that timeline wise, he's got plenty of time. Once he gets drafted by whatever lucky team ends up drafting Will Johnson, he's a stud.
Yeah,
Get
he's
him in the
good.
building, get him rehabbing, get him a little bit stronger. He should be good to go.
Yeah, I think you also. I mean, you might even be able to get a discount here because some
Potentially.
teams, just like fantasy drafters, some they see injury and they just discard him,
We're just
right?
yep, we're gonna
They
drop
just
him 15
yeah.
spots or
Now
whatever.
you would
Yeah,
hope that the medical, analysts and experts in the building can have a say,
you would
but
think.
I mean, hey, you
Hard
never
to
know in
say.
a big organization, right? It happens in the military all the time, right?
Sure.
Sometimes the people that maybe should make those decisions just don't have that power.
Yeah.
Typically head coaches, GMs don't have the most medical background. So,
Yep. Yeah. If he
yeah,
drops to 21, I would not be disappointed.
yeah. I mean, hey, yeah, if he can drop all the way to Lurs, man, that'd be a nice little pickup for y'all. So, all right, let's finish out with the last cornerback here.
That's it.
Notre Dame cornerback, former Notre Dame quarterback Benjamin Morrison,
Yeah.
a young player who had an injury earlier in the year. Back on October 12th, he had a labral tear that required surgery. He has 10 and a half months until the season. He was unable to participate in the NFL Combine as he was still recovering due to the hip injury. So why don't you tell us about this labral repair? What is a labrum? What are we talking about here?
Yeah, so the labrum is basically a piece of tissue on the outside of like the socket. So it basically deepens the socket, helps to absorb some of the forces that are being placed through the joint itself. Hip labrum tears are kind of nasty things unless we get surgery. A lot of times surgically, we can go in and clean some bone spur kind of things up. We can obviously tether the labrum back together, but it is something that takes some time to really heal. So, like you said, he has about 10 and a half months to kick off week one. Usually this is like a 7 to 9 month recovery timeline. So
Yeah,
again, a little bit lengthier, kind of like our ACL guy. But again, he should be fine. But at the same time, like, is he going to be able to trust that hip to do what he really needs to do? Especially, really, he played the first month or so of the season, but through Notre Dame's run into the college football playoff, into the national championship game, didn't get much action, and it's been a minute since he's played football.
yeah, no, absolutely. So for this one for me, I just had to look up because I'm like, damn, I was thinking of the color wheel here.
Yeah.
Yellow and green, what does that make? I guess it's just a lime color. Because I'm gonna throw a lime flag. I know we said there's three, but fuck it, we're pulling something out there because from an injury perspective, it's the recovery outcomes are not as bad as like an ACL and Achilles and things like that as far as
Correct.
projection for the year
Yes.
following. But you have a rookie cornerback who is gonna miss a decent amount of time. I mean, it could be up to a 9 month recovery, giving him only a month and a half until the season. So I'm just
Mhm.
worried more about the training camp and the rookie minicamp time that he
Sure.
potentially might miss. That's my only real hesitations. I think overall, like you kind of stated, I think he's in a better spot than a guy like Revel, but
Yep.
I do think he's in a little bit worse spot than a guy like Will Johnson. So he's kind of in the middle for me. No, not really majorly concerned, but I want to
Yeah.
make sure he's hitting his stride early on in rookie minicamp, early on in the offseason to make sure he's going well. So I will do a lime green flag for this one.
Yeah, unlike you, I'm not gonna make up rules as we go through this. I'm gonna say this is a green guy for me. I think he's got the timeline there, and it's one of those things that like they shut him down pretty quick. It wasn't
Yeah.
like they um, tried to work through that labral tear, and like you said, with labrum tears, we usually see them bounce back pretty well.
Yep.
Um,
As long as they don't grind that labrum down, like you were saying, if they can get a quick surgery, like sometimes out in the outside of the great medical sports world, we can get some people walking around on it and stuff, and that's where it really gets nasty. But
exactly.
yeah. All right,
Exactly.
man. We for a third of the way through, we got through our cornerbacks, our secondary, And it's time for us to tell you about one of our new sponsors here, Fast Draft. That is like Fast Draft Fantasy. Start drafting faster. And when I mean faster, I mean faster. I mean, the real call to for this new app here is that 20-second round, 20-second draft time, right? So you have those drafts where, all right, you get your first two rounds and then you kind of get bored because everybody's got 60 seconds or 90 seconds or 2 minutes and you're just waiting there like, all right, I know who I want. Why am I waiting on that? No more waiting. That is what Fast Draft Fantasy is for. You can get these drafts done in under 10 minutes. And plus, we've got something extra special for you. Use the promo code PlusDGenDoc and get a 100% deposit match up to $50. It's as simple as this, folks. Download fastdraft.app, use promo code PlusDGenDoc, deposit $50, and boom, a free $50 on us. They've got some best ball tournaments up already for you to win some cash. We will be doing some fast draft bets later on in the offseason, so you're not going to want to miss it. Go ahead, download that, and get your free $50 today.
Man, I
All
love
right.
free money.
Free money. And not, I mean, if they're going to give it to us, who are we to not take it?
That's exactly right.
All right, let's go on to our next set of folks here. We'll stick with the defensive side of the ball, and we'll
Ooh,
talk
we got some big boys.
Yeah, some big names here. So let's start with probably the lowest prospect of them all, but still a big name here, and a very controversial one because we've got Texas A&M defensive lineman Shemar Turner, who's dealing with a bit of an interesting injury. So prior to last college football season, Turner had surgery. It was kind of unknown at the time, but the surgery was essentially he was dealing with some bone stress injuries, bone stress fractures to his shin bone. So he had a metal rod placed in his shin before the season to try to sure things up. Well, lo and behold, he plays the season. He's trying to get ready for the Senior Bowl, and they evaluate him, and they find that the rod didn't really do what it was supposed to. He was still dealing with an injury, and they pretty much told him, hey, man, you're going to have to shut down for, a couple months, no impact, and, just rest that leg so we don't have a further bone injury. So we've got a bit of a complicated issue here. This injury just kind of came up in January here, the end of January. So he's really got about 8 months or so for till NFL kickoff. But this is a bit of an interesting one. So why don't you dive in deeper? Tell us, what do we got going on here?
Yeah, so like you said, this is an interesting one for sure because usually when it comes to bone things, bones heal pretty straightforward. I mean,
Yeah.
it's bones and they just heal, right? They're very vascularized. They get a lot of nutrients and things
Yeah.
to let them heal. Usually that's like a 6 to 8 week process.
Yep.
Now in this case, he went through surgery. He had a metal rod placed in his femur. Even with that, we still expect basic bone timelines to take place, and it should be like a 6 to 8 week, healing process,
Yep.
and then maybe a month or so of recovery after that. Well, now we have this thing pop up in January. Um,
Hey, it's still bothering me,
it's still
whatever.
bothering me, right? And it's like, okay, so we've already gone through the process once. I guess we'll just run back the tape and do it again. And kind of what we're expecting is like a 2 to 3 month injury timeline, but who knows exactly, how that's going to shape up.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is going to be my biggest red flag of the
Yeah.
entire episode. This is the guy who I have the biggest injury concern about. And I know this is a bit of an interesting one, and we don't literally see stress fractures a lot. It's very much prevalent in the military population, so I do see it often, but it's not something we see generally like in sports and athletics and stuff like that.
Right.
Because it's usually an overuse injury,
Yep.
right? The bone cannot keep up with the stress and the demand that person, that athlete is putting on it. So, two reasons this is such a major red flag for me. One, the initial injury was bad enough, it required a metal rod to be in place in the bone. You don't do
Mhm.
that willy nilly. Like, that means, like, wow, like, we really want to try to get some stability in here. And two, it didn't work. I mean,
Right.
all he did was play football, which he's going to get drafted to play football for many years,
Yep.
and it clearly didn't work. So I'm not sure, I don't think that the college level is going to put less stress on the NFL. The season's longer. I mean, he's going to have all these, off-season things he's going to have to do. So I think this is something that he's going to have to manage for career if he
Yeah,
can even
potentially.
get that far. I have some real concerns here, and I understand. Look, at the end of the day, these are estimations. These are educated
Mhm,
guesses. We do not have
mhm.
the ability to look at their scans, look at touch and feel the players and things like that we would with with all of our other patients. But this is concerning. I mean, I
Completely agree.
understand like that he's going to get some positive reports and people are going to say there's healthy, but they literally told him like no impact, meaning no walking, no running, no jumping, nothing for a month.
Yep.
So if this happens again during the season, he's shut down for a month, and that doesn't include the ramp up time you need to go play football. Like I think this is a really big issue. So hey, maybe it's just that I've got a little bit more experience with the bone stress stuff, and I know that these things can be nasty, and if you're
Mhm.
not smart about it, it will get worse. But what say you? Are you concerned, or is this something I'm making a big deal out of nothing?
No, I think you're onto something here. It's just one of those kind of funky things that 95% of people don't deal with, right? It's just one of those things that is just an oddity, sort
Yeah,
of, from a medical standpoint. So, from a football standpoint, like, teams should definitely be concerned with something that, we fixed medically, we fixed surgically, and then for whatever reason, it just didn't work. And
yeah. I
in
mean, and
in
you're not
most
going to go
cases.
back in there and put another rod in. It's
Right,
like,
right, exactly. And I mean, we have bad outcomes all the time with surgeries and things like that, but usually it's not like bone stuff. Usually
yeah.
it's something soft tissue. So yeah, I think you're onto something there.
Yeah. All right. Sticking in the same realm, Abdul Carter. Now he was dealing with, we all heard about the shoulder, but we're not going to talk about the shoulder. That seems to be pretty much wrapped up.
Hmm.
The foot that came
Yep.
out kind of at the combine process as he was doing
Yep.
medical evaluations. He had what we call a stress reaction to the foot. Now, a stress reaction, Derek will talk a little bit more about this, but essentially it's a lower level of an actual bone stress fracture. So
Yep.
it's enough to say, hey, there's something going on, but not enough to be like concerning where surgery is required.
Yep.
And so that came up in February 26th. That gives him about 6.5 months until the NFL season. It was actually an update today that the stretch reaction is healing and no surgery is required. Now, I mean, of course, they're going to say that with the draft right around the corner. That came out from his camp, so it's not like they're going to be like, "Hey, things are messed up," because teams have to make a decision in the next 2 weeks. But assuming they're acting in good faith, a positive update here. So, where are we at with Abdul Carter and the stress reaction to his foot?
Yeah, I think you broke it down pretty nicely. I mean, stress reaction and stress fracture somewhat go hand in hand, and stress reactions are just kind of a precursor. So I kind of think of it as like inflammation of the bone before it
Yep,
starts to break,
exactly.
right? So with the inflammation, we're still going to have pain, we're still going to have swelling around the area, we're still going to have some loss of function. He's still going to feel that pain anytime he walks or runs and does that kind of stuff for a while, but nothing's necessarily broken at
Yeah,
that point. So with a guy like Abdul Carter, absolute freak
yeah,
of an athlete, he's an absolute stud, probably a top 5 pick. Um, I'm full on with Abdul Carter. I don't think it's necessarily anything to be too concerned for.
yeah,
This is something that should heal itself within a couple of months, and he's got 6.5 months till opening day. So
yeah.
whether the Browns or your G men or whoever ends up getting him, in the top 5, they'll probably be pretty happy
Yeah.
with Abdul Carter.
Yeah, no. I like how you threw the baseball opening day in there. But yeah, I'm kind of there with you. I'm not gonna like, gotta freak out and throw caution to the wind and whatever. But like
Sure.
my only question is I agree with you. This injury, assuming things are going well, 2 to 3 months, perfectly fine. He'll be ready to go. Why did it happen?
Fair.
Stress reaction, again, with bones, it is a direct result of putting too much stress on that bone. He
Yeah.
didn't even know it happened. So I don't think it was anything traumatic. It was probably
Yeah.
more of a buildup thing.
I'm guessing you're probably right. It's probably one of those things where he's ramped up his volume of training to
Yeah.
get ready for the combine or whatever else. Um, and it probably just started to push that area of that bone just a little bit too much.
Yeah, my only concern is because look, the number one risk factor for any injury is an injury to that previous body part, right?
Fair
So
enough. Yep.
we haven't had the full stress fracture, but we've had enough to say that area can clearly get overworked. So
Yep.
I'm not gonna, it's not maybe enough for a yellow flag. Definitely not a red flag. I think that Carter's a great prospect. He's a great player. I just would like to know a little bit more about how this came about. Hopefully he can learn from this in a training programming idea of like, hey, I
Sure.
can't just run myself into the ground, because
Yep.
that's typically what happens when we talk about these bone stress injuries. So
Yep.
yeah, glad to see that Carter is going to be a beast wherever he goes up. Hopefully, it's more of a learning lesson than a true issue like we're talking about with Shemar Turner.
Right.
All right, last defensive lineman here. Let's talk about Jalon Walker, the Georgia Bulldog. Uh, you know, completely off topic, but shout out to my Florida Gators for being the national champions.
We
I
talked about the Bulldogs for 2
Yeah,
seconds, and you gotta bring the
I
Gators
just
into
saw
it.
that ugly, ugly red uniform, and it immediately just reminded me that we are the college basketball national champions. So, uh, anyway, Jalon Walker, defensive end there, edge rusher, linebacker, whatever you want to call him, out of Georgia. He picked up a quad strain earlier in March 4th. He's got 6 months till the draft. He was training for the draft. Where are we at here? Should we be concerned with this quad strain, or is this not too big of a deal?
I'm not too concerned. We've kind of gone through strains already with the hamstring strain with Will Johnson. So
Yep.
again, we can basically say that muscle got overstretched, overworked, and it's probably one of those overstretching, potentially some minor tearing kind of things. This is something that usually heals up in a month and a half, 2 months. He's got 6 months to get the strength back into his quad, back into his thigh muscle. So I'm not terribly concerned. I think this is a green flag kind of a candidate for me.
Yep, I 100% agree. I don't think we need to spend much more time. Jalon Walker, green flag, quad strain, soft tissue. Even if it's worst case 2 months, he's got
Yep.
6. He's going to be perfectly fine.
Yep.
So we think green light for Jalon Walker there. All right, we're on to our back half here, the last third. Before we do that, I got to tell you about what we got going on here at idpplus.com. We've got our biggest deal ever. That's right, 50% off every subscription package on idpplus.com. Use promo code IDP2025. That's IDP2025. All one word, all caps. And you're going to want to get in quickly because Little Birdie told me May 1st, this deal is over. So you want to get in
Ooh,
on this now.
few weeks.
Act fast, folks. I feel like a little bit of a used car salesman, but biggest deal we've got. All right. So our last back half, our final 3 guys we're going to talk about here. A little bit of the leftovers. Got tight end, offensive tackle, and a linebacker here. Let's start with Mr. Jihaad Campbell. Now,
Yeah.
this is probably one of the more interesting ones as well because he had a labral tear repair. There's kind of questions about when exactly it happened. He did
Mhm.
leave the Reliance Request Bowl, which was December 31st, Michigan versus Bama. He did leave that game with an upper body injury. It was disclosed. So is that when the injury happened? We don't really know because he didn't really have surgery until after he tested out at the combine. So we're
Mhm.
not exactly sure when he had surgery as well. We're just going to call it March 3rd, 2025 because it's around there. And that gives him 6 months of recovery timeline till week 1.
Yep.
Again, ish, because we don't have exact details there.
Yep.
But we do know it's a shoulder labral repair surgery. So what can you tell us about Jihaad Campbell?
So with labrum tears, it's fairly similar to our hip labrum tear with Benjamin Morrison at Notre Dame or coming out of Notre Dame. But up in the shoulder, we don't have like the deepest socket like we do at the hip to begin with. So the labrum has to play a bigger role in providing some stability at the shoulder joint itself. For Jihaad Campbell, this is a timeline scare for me because usually these are like 6 to 8 month recovery timelines, and he's only got 6 months. So he's going to miss all of training camp, all of preseason, all of rookie mini camps, all of those things. So he's not going to get the reps that you would like to see a rookie linebacker coming into the league necessarily have. From a labrum standpoint, this is really concerning for me when it comes to like quarterbacks, throwing athletes. Not quite as big of a deal for linebackers, defensive ends, offensive linemen, anybody that has to reach over their head. It tends to be a bigger deal. Linebackers have to do that occasionally, not nearly as frequently, but it's more of the timeline thing that really is scaring me for Campbell.
I agree. Yeah, yeah. I think you really explained that perfectly. Like, the injury itself for a linebacker, not great, but it's not the end of the world, not the
Yep.
worst thing, right? But yeah, it's a 6 to 8 month recovery timeline. He's only got 6 months. He's at the best case scenario if he can get out there for week one. He's gonna have like no real reps,
Right.
right? I don't know if he's gonna get much preseason and things that a rookie linebacker is gonna need.
Yep.
So I do think that this is a bit concerning for the timeline for this year. Now, when we get to that first half of the season, don't know how much to expect, but at the back half, he should be good to go.
Mhm.
It's just by then, has he done enough to earn a spot on the field? Yada
Yep.
yada yada. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think long term, not really concerned, but in
Completely
the
agree.
short term, as far as this season, I do think he's got a real shot to miss some time early on. Whether that's because he hasn't been able to practice or he's just not ready to be 100%. And I do
Yep.
want to clarify, when we give out these timelines, we talk about recovery timelines, we are talking about return to sport, like when they're
Yes.
ready to go, when I
Yes.
can expect to get them, on the field, right?
Yep.
Not like, hey, they're out of their sling, or because when you look Google, it's going to be a little bit shorter because you got to
Right.
have time to ramp up. You can't go from not playing football for months at a time,
Yep.
not being able to run at a high level, to just right back
And
into it.
especially with these major surgeries, like anytime we have surgery, there's a ton of inflammation, a ton of swelling. It basically shuts those muscles down. We got to build those muscles completely back up, especially for these high level dudes that are going to
Yeah,
be, banging into each other.
absolutely. So what are we going with? Yellow, red? Where are we at with Campbell? What do you got?
I'm
You
gonna
gonna do an orange?
say I'm gonna say yellow for the upcoming season, but red for the first half.
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Fair. So basically an orange. I just want to make
I'll
sure
we'll say
everyone.
yeah. I'll say red just because mostly timeline wise, I don't know if he's gonna get the reps to really contribute a ton
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah, I'll go orange because we've already established I don't follow the rules. So, all right, let's jump back over to our last two here. Let's talk another Michigan man. Wow, must be a good team there. A lot of prospects. Um, Tight end, arguably one of the best tight ends, maybe number one. We'll see. Colston Loveland. He had a grade 5 AC joint surgery, repair, whatever you want to call it. He had to
Yep.
get it. It was dislocated to the point he had to get it surgically repaired.
Yep.
Derek will explain more. So he actually injured this initially in September, and he basically toughed it out for most of the season, and then had surgery in January 29th. So one, it tells you he's a tough dude,
Mhm.
but he's now cut his recovery timeline down to only 7 months as far as the time from his surgery to week one. Where are we at with Mr. Colson Loveland?
Yeah, AC sprains come in all shapes, sizes, fashions, however you want to say it. Usually, with our grading scales, we as medical professionals don't like to go above 3, except for AC joint stuff. So, a
Yep.
grade 5 AC joint sprain basically means that his collarbone is way above where his acromion is, and your acromion is basically the tip of your shoulder, it's connected to your shoulder blade. So that joint kind of sits right in here.
Yep.
And his collarbone is like way elevated. So if you want to look something like this up, look up a picture of Keenan Allen. He's got
Mhm.
one of these. He plays through it. It's kind of one of those
Yeah,
medical
but his wasn't
craziness.
as severe.
Exactly.
Yeah, he had like
Exactly.
a grade 3, which still gives you that elevation, but the 5 also includes
Right.
other levels of
Usually,
instability.
once we get into grade 4, 5, 6, then we start talking surgery kind of stuff.
Yeah, like you don't have a
And
choice. 3, you kind of got a choice.
right. Yeah. So with the grade 5 AC sprain, we he had surgery. Timeline wise, this is probably 4, 5, maybe 6 month recovery timeline. And he's got 7 months before week one. So timeline wise, it's cutting it pretty close there. But again, as a tight end, he's not doing a lot of overhead stuff, but he's doing a lot of pressing straightforward if he's kind of in the line of scrimmage,
Yep.
being asked to block. So that's a little bit more of a concern for me than Jihaad Campbell would be. But yeah, I think from a timeline standpoint, he's in better shape than Campbell is.
Yeah. All right. I like it. So I think I'd go yellow flag for Colston Loveland. Like you said, a little bit more position specific. He's going to have a little bit more demands of that shoulder. I mean, look, the shoulder is the most mobile joint in the body,
Yep.
which inherently means it's not the most stable because we have to give up some stability for that mobility. That's why it's the most likely to get dislocated, things like that.
Yep.
So, with the surgery, as long as he's able to recover 4 to 6 months, he should be good for week 1. But again, how much reps is he going to miss? Yada, 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 right? Again, rookies, right? This time is a lot more important to them than it is for your regular veterans who kind of know the system, know a little bit about what they're doing. So
Yep.
I'm gonna go yellow flag there. It sounds like you are as well.
Yep. I like that. Yep.
Cool.
I like a yellow.
All right, brother. We got one more, and then we can go ahead and let you get to your
Ooh,
little
we got a
bedtime.
Buckeye. Nice.
We are ending on I guess a high note. The fact that look now my Gators are top of won a national championship. I will let you now I understand. It feels pretty damn good, huh?
It
Feels pretty
sure
damn good.
does.
The
Sure does.
reigning national champion Ohio State Buckeyes. We've got offensive tackle Josh Simmons. He tore his patellar tendon back in October 12th, 2024. He's got about 10 and a half months to recover from his injury date
Mhm.
till when the season starts, which I do want to say, I mean, I think they had 2 offensive linemen they lost for the year,
They
which
did.
really makes their run even that much more impressive because Simmons is like, he was one of the top tackle prospects, and I think it was their center as well. You can correct me there.
Correct.
So to
Yep.
lose 2, studs on the O line, then still win a national championship. As much as it pains me to say, kudos to you, Ohio State.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah.
do we got for
So with Josh Simmons, this happened pretty early on in the season that the quad tendon rupture. Quad tendon, basically, you have 4 quad muscles that make up the muscles in your thigh. Those muscles come down and attach to your kneecap, and then basically that tendon continues all the way down to the front part of your shin. Um, it's a major thing because basically one of your biggest, most powerful muscles in your body completely gets ruptured, and so it is pretty debilitating for a little bit. But from an injury timeline standpoint, we're looking at something, I don't know, 8 to 10 months probably, and he's
Yeah.
got about 10 and a half months before week 1. So again, concerning for preseason training camps, those kind of things. But going into this past college football season, Josh Simmons was seen as like the tackle. He was one of the top 2-3 tackles at least. So I think this is one of those situations where, because of the injury, we might see him drop down a little bit. Same thing with Seth McLaughlin, like you said, the center for Ohio State. He ended up winning, is it the Remington
Yeah.
Award for the best center in
Center.
college
Yep.
football, even not playing the last month of the season. So both of those guys are absolute studs, but because of injury, they'll probably drop down the draft board a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, look, patellar tendons, lengthy recovery, 8 to 10 months. But again, the outcome's not quite as bad as something like an Achilles or an ACL.
Yep.
So, I think I'm going to go yellow flag because it's cutting it close with the rookie and the timeline.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, like long term, I mean, dude, he's shown he's a stud, especially if you
Oh
can get a
yeah.
little injury discount. As we're just talking about, like from a team and a franchise perspective, I
Yep.
mean, he could be one of the steals of the draft.
No doubt.
Someone's going to be getting a really good player, assuming rehab goes well and nothing crazy happens. Like, dude is a really good player, and if he
No
can
doubt.
get that injury discount, like maybe he won't be ready exactly snap number 1, week number 1, but by mid-season, dude should be fine. And then you're talking about hopefully franchise, left tackle, right tackle. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. Completely
All
agree.
right, brother. We made it through. And look, folks, if you just watched almost 40 minutes of us talking football on April, like, beginning April, one, you're awesome. We love you. Come back, hang out with us, right? You're our
No
people.
doubt.
But two, that means you definitely like fantasy football and you're a football nerd just like us. So get yourself over to the 2025 Fantasy Football Expo. Grab your tickets at thefantasyfootballexpo.com. It's this August. We're talking August 8th through the 10th in Canton, Ohio. One of the best places for football. They got the Pro Football Hall of Fame. That's a town that loves football. You're also going to want to check out the new fan packages, and you can join us and other well-known content creators at the NFL Hall of Fame and Village. So super fun. Derek and I are hoping to get ourselves out there for the first time.
Yep.
And be out there and have some fun with y'all. So make sure you get your tickets today at the fantasyfootballexpo.com. All right, brother. We just went through 9 NFL draft prospects. Love being able to talk some football here. Also, get ready to dust off your sports books because next week we are going to be coming with our NFL draft props party. We're going to be talking our favorite prop bets for the NFL draft, right? So that'll be over on IDP Plus Bets. This is going to be on IDP Plus, where it's a little bit more fantasy focused. So make sure you're following. You got, subscribing, liking, got your notifications on for both. Because again, at IDP Plus, we're talking football 365, 24/7. We live, breathe, and die football. That's what we do. So you're going to want to check that out. Also, if you're itching for some live action right now, I'm talking all things UFL. Started off with 2 profitable weeks back to back. So join that. That'll be over on IDP Plus Bets as well. All right. Enough talking from me. You got anything for the people before we let them get out of here?
Nope. I see a 9 on my clock and my computer screen. It's bedtime, man.
Yes, I apologize. Everyone say sorry to Derek for keeping him up 9 o'clock again.
That's right.
9 p.m. Eastern time, that is. So, look, folks, we hope you enjoyed the show. Again, it's the off season, so we're kind of floating new ideas. Obviously, we're going to be talking draft because that's coming up. But then we got another nice lull. We started our NFL injury deep dives. If you want some topics you want to talk about, some players you're kind of questioning, hey, how much should I be worried or what's going on? Either reach out to us in the comments or reach out to us on X. Derek is at prof_lock2. You can find myself at the DGenDoc. And without further ado, this is Professor Locks and the DJ Docs signing off from IDP Plus.
Thank you for watching the IDP Plus YouTube network. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Be sure to tap the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload new content.